If you don't have a positive outlook, you're probably not going to be a self-starter. I guess I've always made a living off of doing what I want to do. What are the odds of being able to do what I like for a living? And the odds on that are really up to you. How much you're willing to sacrifice to do that, or at what amount of crazy do you lend to that? And what I mean by crazy is, how are you a rabid woodworker? Do you make stuff so much that you don't have any place to put it? And that's kind of me. That's all I can kind of relate to. But I did do other hobbies as well. I guess I've always made a living off of doing what I want to do. Even as a kid, I caught pigeons and sold them to the local feed store, and just drove around on my mini bike on the canal banks until I saw some tall structure with pigeons on it. I mean, it's a lucky I'm still alive, as pigeons are on high stuff. I did some pretty crazy stuff. I've got some pretty wild stories about catching pigeons, but that's another day. So I have done silversmithing a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I know which end of the soldering iron to use, and torch and all that. I like doing gemstone work. I think you stand more of a chance of being able to do that kind of work, the hobby stuff. If you're just passionate and you're just prolific and you see something out there, don't be afraid to try to do it, And the only way to really get good at something is just keep after it. And you don't have to stick with anything. A lot of my peeps around me said, you could do something else too. And I have always done everything everyone suggested. I scuba dived. I'm ready to jump out of an airplane. I think a tandem jump, though, my knees are crap. I want to do a lot of things. I snow skied. I did a lot of stuff. And you really have to follow your passion. One of the reasons I started gemstone faceting, making diamond shapes and all of that stuff, was because I had back surgery because I was playing too much racquetball, and I went water skiing while I was injured. And it's just a self-inflicted wound. I've always been rabid about everything I've done. Failure is always an option, and I embrace failure. I don't expect it, but I can anticipate it. I anticipate it by how much homework did I do on the process before I jumped in. And you have to cut yourself a little slack if you didn't do any. You just saw something pretty and you decided to go make it, and you didn't even know what it was about. And that's real rabid. And I kind of think you don't really have to study anything to do anything. You just have to go do it. And if you do study it, you'll do it better. And once you do it better, you'll know why people are telling you to study it. But just because you did it in paper doesn't mean you're going to be happy doing it in real life. So I venture to do it in real life, and if I can't figure it out, then I go to the paper. And I always try to work with a prototype first. I mean, my hubris sometimes gets the best of me, and I'll say, I'm just going to make 5 of those at once because, something looks easy. Don't underestimate somebody else's opus. Just because something looks easy, it may not be as easy as you think. So be ready to fail, and you learn. Failure hurts, and that makes a real good neurological pathway. And so you really get stimulation from your failures, and maybe even more so than your successes. But successes stroke your ego. And if you make somebody else's successful project, you get a spin-off from their success. So feel free to make someone else's opus, and you will eventually find your own. Some people are of the idea with AI coming, and I'm a futurist as well. I have been having my ear to the ground, and I think that some jobs could go away, but it doesn't affect you as much if you already are doing 2 or 3 jobs. You know, not really jobs, maybe your hobby. Maybe your hobby is all invasive in your life. You know, maybe you like backpacking, and you find a way to monetize that on your weekends or something because you're a guide or something. I don't know. For those that are willing to look for an off-ramp, there's always been one for me. And I worked in a grocery store. I was in the military. I mean, there's a lot of things to do in life. I was a gardener for a while. Oh, that wasn't fun. But a beekeeper was probably the most interesting job. And that was one of my hobbies. And so in order to find a job that you like, you got to try something. And so it's a risk that you have to take. And it takes time away from your other stuff. I mean, you're doing one thing and your spouse or your loved one is doing another. In my case, my wife and I did it together. We started the bee business together, and gradually I've started making stuff. We've been together. Well, Thursday will be our 45th wedding anniversary. If you don't have a positive outlook, you're probably not going to be a self-starter. Work your way towards where you want to be. Everything is about attitude. If you have a positive attitude, it's contagious. Those around you will suddenly start being helpful, and it can come through in the most subtle ways. You know, when you least expect it, a good attitude will spark interest in other things. You know, just because you were doing this, you suddenly found this other thing. So a good attitude allowed you to do that first thing so that you could be near that second thing when the time came for that to shine. And this is just puts you, it sets you up for success.